It's deadline day. There are loads of deals still to be done today. Some big ones have already happened. We're keeping you right across everything as the clock ticks down. And welcome to all of you joining us on YouTube and on the Sky Sports app.
As always, we are live around the grounds to keep you across who is going where. And it's Friday, which of course means that managers are holding their news conferences today as well. Ahead of the weekend's games, we'll be hearing from Jurgen Klopp.
And look at that, still here. Thank goodness. Darren Moore and Phil Boltley for another hour. We'll be talking about the big deals as they are being done.
So the breaking news in the last hour, Manchester City have confirmed the £53 million signing of Matheus Nunes from Wolves. They've also let 3 players go. We're going to head to Ben Ransom now to bring us all the latest developments there. Ben, let's start with Nunes, who got his move, didn't he, after going on strike?
Yes, I think it's fair to say this is a move that the player himself was desperate to make happen ever since Manchester City's interest was firmed up last week with that offer, which was initially rejected of around £47 million. At the time, Wolves said, look, we want closer to £60 million for a player who has a long time left on his contract. Obviously, the clubs came back to the table. They've been able to thrash this one out. So it looks like it's going to be around £53 million that's been the signing that's brought him here. Matheus Nunes has signed a 5-year deal. Pep Guardiola clearly is a big fan of the player. And Nunes clearly is a big fan of Pep Guardiola. He's put some quotes out today after making the move permanent. And he said that the opportunity to work under the Manchester City manager, one of the greatest managers ever, he calls him, and alongside some of the best players in the world, was something he simply couldn't turn down. He does say that he learned so much in his time at Wolves, but he's excited to continue in the Premier League, a division which brings the best out of me, and he's really excited to get going, meet the fans, and hopefully part of a successful future at Manchester City. So Nunes done, and you do get the feeling this deal was sweetened by the fact that Tommy Doyle has gone in the opposite direction. That is a loan deal for the season with an option for Wolves to buy the young midfielder for £4.3 million if they want to. City will hold a 50% sell-on fee if on any profit made on Doyle. The two clubs coming together. Nunes going on strike, yes, but today he's a number 27 for Manchester City.
He is, Ben. Now, City recouped most of that money, didn't they, in the surprise sale, you'd have to say, of Cole Palmer. Talk us through the departures there. You've already mentioned one as well, of course.
Yeah, so Doyle has gone. A few of the academy players have gone for quite a lot of money, actually. I mean, Cole Palmer takes that £42.5 million fee to Chelsea, makes up the bulk of what City have spent on Matheus Nunes. And Palmer's a player who, by his own admission, has been looking for more game time. Let's not forget he was promoted to the first team squad around 3 seasons ago when he made his debut. This season, he scored in the Community Shield. He scored in the UEFA Super Cup final. So he's clearly a player of prodigious talent, and I suppose that was underlined by his performances for the England under-21s as they lifted the European Championships in the summer. He has been slightly frustrated. He's not quite been able to crack making Pep's first 11 as often as he would like. Chelsea came in what has to be said is one of the most surprising deals of this last week of the transfer window. A big offer, an offer that Manchester City felt was good enough for them to accept, and Chelsea have their man today, Palmer, signing that lengthy 7-year deal. And again, he's really excited, I think, for that new chapter, the opportunity for him to showcase his talents. He's joined what he calls a young, hungry squad. So he's gone straight into the Chelsea first team. A loss for City, but obviously the money they felt they couldn't turn down for him. Other players going out today, and the academy, as I say, has been making a big profit once again. It feels like it's the narrative every deadline day. Taylor Harwood-Bellis, he's joined Southampton on a season-long loan. Remember, he helped Burnley win promotion last season on loan. That then has an obligation to buy of £20 million if Southampton make it into the Premier League at the first attempt. And James McAtee is close to finalising a loan move to Sheffield United.
Ben, for now, thank you very much.
Now it's going to be a big day today at Fulham. Our reporter James Lewis has some breaking news for us. James.
And it is concerning a player that's been on Fulham's lips for the last 48 hours. I'm in a position to tell you now that Fulham have given João Palhinha permission to travel to Munich. Now, that doesn't mean that the deal is completed at this stage, but it is a significant development that the club have allowed him to travel. We know as well also that Fulham are looking at trying to bring in a replacement for João Palhinha. That was something that Marco Silva stressed quite clearly in his press conference yesterday afternoon, which I attended. And at the moment, we're hearing the main player in the frame as a replacement will be Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. Talks continue over that one. So that is a significant development, I can tell you, that João Palhinha has been given permission to travel to Munich. Now, aside from that, the first player through the door that we are expecting here at the training grounds later this afternoon is Alex Iwobi. We know that a deal has been agreed, around £22 million plus add-ons. He's been given permission to do his medical. The first part of that medical will be done off-site, and then he'll be coming here to the Fulham training ground to do the second part of that before signing all the contract details. So it's turning out to be quite an eventful day here at Fulham, with one player coming in, Alex Iwobi, potentially a second one in Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, and also the player that I know Fulham didn't want to see going out, but at the moment it's moving a little bit closer. João Palhinha going to Munich to travel out there, but deal's still not done yet.
Big news, James. Thank you.
OK, let's get some immediate reaction to that. First of all, with Phil and Darren. Darren, let's come to you first. Palhinha has been so important to Fulham, hasn't he? And what is the moment where a club actually goes, OK, you can go and talk? What triggers that?
Obviously, the players' representatives and the player having a desire to go and play for Bayern Munich. But the key to it is Palhinha has gone over to Munich now. The only reason why he's gone there, because obviously Fulham's got somebody else coming in now, and by the reports it sounds like Højbjerg. For Palhinha to go, somebody else has to come in. For him to go and do a big money move that's going to happen today, it's interesting that Højbjerg will come in, because it's a big sign, it's a big deal to do on transfer deadline, but it looks like there's enough time with him travelling to Munich and with the other player not being too far away. The deal can get done.
OK. Different types of players, aren't they, Palhinha and Højbjerg? Can you understand then? Or is it that he wants to go, so there's no point keeping him? Is that the feeling, do you think, with him, Fulham?
Yeah, I think it gets to a stage where, obviously, Palhinha had an outstanding season last season, and obviously he's attracted interest from some top clubs, Bayern being one. I don't think Fulham are holding back in getting that move over the line. Obviously, they want to have their plans in place if the deal does go over the line. So, you know, they've got Højbjerg, where obviously they're looking to bring in, and a few other interests. So, I don't think you stop a player when he's looking to improve and kick on in his career.
Can you understand why Højbjerg's perhaps dropped down the pecking order at Tottenham under Ange Postecoglou?
Yeah, just different dynamics to the team. Ange could be setting up Tottenham in a way where probably Højbjerg's looking at starting games probably fewer and far between. So it's nothing against him. It's just probably the different dynamics. Looking back at the Fulham deal for Palhinha, it's good business. It's a profit again. If it is, the reports are 80 million again for Fulham. It's great business. And they're signing another great player, midfield player in Højbjerg, what's got still plenty of mileage left in him. And they might need Højbjerg to be the anchored midfield player and allowed to sit in front of that Fulham backline to allow one or two others. And if Alex Iwobi is signing, he's another exciting prospect. So you can see the business being done by Fulham. But for me, it looks like good business if they are to be getting the 80 million for him.
Just on that as well, with Marco Silva, do you as a manager, because it looks from the outside looking in, not only at Spurs but also previously at Southampton, that he's more than just what he brings on the pitch. He is a leader out there. He's a talker. He is perhaps your mouthpiece out on the pitch. For a manager, how important is all aspects of a player, not just how well they can kick a ball?
It's absolutely key. The manager, in terms of that, becomes a leader. You have to have a product and a vision to sell to the players. The players have to believe in what you're giving them. They have to believe in terms of the tactics, the vision of the football, the style of play you're going to do. They've got to believe in that. They've got to feel it, and you've got to be able to implement that to them to get the best out of them.
OK, the Iwobi one's interesting. We'll visit that with Phil a little later on as well.
Yeah, it could be a very busy day at Liverpool as well. Jurgen Klopp has been holding his news conference this morning, and Vinny O'Connor was there for us. Of course, Vinny, the move for Ryan Gravenberch has been moving along steadily, it would seem. What did Klopp have to say about it, though, this morning?
Yeah, certainly one signing that Liverpool are going to deliver on deadline day, and Ryan Gravenberch is on Merseyside undergoing a medical. That's ahead of completing a deal worth around £34.2 million, and Gravenberch will sign a 5-year contract with Liverpool. And what we spoke to Jurgen Klopp about, well, at least we asked Jurgen Klopp today, was what kind of a role he would fill. We know him as a box-to-box midfielder. But Jurgen Klopp, I think, maybe stung a little bit, of course, by the fact that earlier in this window, Liverpool had a deal struck for Moises Caicedo to join them. He was expected on Merseyside for a medical, and, of course, that deal didn't happen. So Jurgen Klopp, when we asked him about Ryan Gravenberch today, wasn't too willing, really, to talk too much about him.
I'm really sorry to disappoint you directly at the start, but you cannot talk about that because nothing really happened yet. All the decisive stuff has to happen. So it's Friday, right? If something happens, we can talk about it on Sunday. Yeah.
Okay. If it is to happen, would that be the only arrival on deadline day?
What would it be?
Would it be the only new arrival on deadline day, or are you in the market for the real?
Whatever. It's deadline day, so I don't want to kill the excitement of the people. You never know. But I'm busy today.
So didn't want to talk about Gravenberch, then I would imagine, Vinny, he wasn't really in the mood to talk about Mo Salah either.
Yeah, that one's been rumbling on for a while. It feels like every week we've had to ask Jurgen Klopp about Mo Salah and his future, and I was almost apologetic when having to ask him again. But obviously those stories are still coming out of Saudi Arabia, and what we know is that Al Ittihad are looking to put together a deal that could see them offer around £150 million for Mo Salah. They would be willing to pay him around £1.5 million a week as well, which would make him the highest paid footballer in Saudi football. But Liverpool's stance throughout this whole summer really has been firm that he isn't for sale. And obviously at this late hour, even stretching into next week, of course, because the Saudi Pro League transfer window is open until the 7th of September. If Liverpool can't bring anyone in, then it doesn't make sense from a football point of view, even if it made sense from a business point of view. But obviously Jurgen Klopp's concern and the concern of his squad is getting into the Champions League at the very least, and of course challenging in the title race as well. So if they were to lose Mo Salah's goal and we're unable to replace them as well, it certainly doesn't make sense from a football point of view. And that's why when we spoke to Jurgen Klopp earlier, his standpoint is the same, that Mo Salah is not for sale.
So the position remains the same. Absolutely, no doubt about that. We cannot. That's how it is. But yeah, nothing else to say.
No offer.
Not as far as that I know, but that doesn't mean a lot, to be honest.
So we're not expecting Mo Salah to leave in this window, or indeed while the Saudi Pro League window is still open. At the same time as well, we're also not expecting Liverpool to strengthen at centre-half in this window. I think there's a recognition at the club that they will need to look at that area next. They've strengthened their forward line. They've strengthened their midfield as well. Virgil van Dijk, of course, now is at the age of 32. Joel Matip's got a season left on his contract. So maybe now, given the fact that there isn't a younger centre-half of the profile that Liverpool are looking for available at the moment, they're not going to move in this window. At the same time, as I say, there's that recognition that it will be an area that needs improvement in the not-too-distant future.
Vinny, thank you. So we heard from Jurgen Klopp this morning then. Plenty of news conferences to bring you across the day because it's, of course, a Premier League weekend. But have you ever considered what it's like to be a manager approaching deadline day? And on the day itself, we'll get the thoughts of Darren Moore next here on Sky Sports News. Welcome back to Sky Sports News here on deadline day. A few bits of news just reaching us. Significant news for Brentford as well, but ultimately disappointing, I'm afraid, Brentford fans, because a deal to take PSV Eindhoven forward Johan Bakayoko to Brentford now looks unlikely. PSV have not been able to get a suitable replacement for the player. He's now expected to stay at the club. That's after Brentford made an offer worth €40 million yesterday in an attempt to get this deal done before the deadline. We are hearing that the transfer could be revisited in January, so you have to wait a little bit longer for that. Brentford fans potentially. AC Milan as well are in talks to sign Patson Daka from Leicester. They want an initial loan deal with an option to buy. Early stages in this one. They're not the only club in for him on deadline day either, so worth keeping an eye on this. We're told there has been tentative interest from Premier League clubs as well today. Let's bring you up to date with some of the done deals this morning then. Goalkeeper Aitor Biendash has joined Manchester United from Fenerbahce for around £4.3 million. Biendash replaces Dean Henderson, who joined Crystal Palace for £20 million on Thursday. The Turkey international has signed a 4-year deal with the option of a further year. Nottingham Forest are closing in on a move to sign Nicolas Dominguez from Bologna, plus Chelsea winger Callum Hudson-Odoi. Both players were seen arriving at Forest's training ground earlier today. Dominguez is involved in a swap deal with Bologna that will see Remo Freuler go the other way. Hudson-Odoi is having his medical before completing a permanent move. Hudson-Odoi was seen as surplus to requirements at Chelsea and has been training with their under-21s since returning following a loan spell at Bayer Leverkusen last season.
Right, we have Darren here. Whilst we've got you here, we just want to take you back, reminisce a little bit, bring you back to this very day, year on, year out. When you played and you managed, it's a very different day, isn't it? But how stressful is this time of year?
Yeah, no, for this time of the year for managers, you start the season, you get through the first 5 or 6 games, you want to get off to a good start, that's the first thing. But also at the same time, you've got one eye on the transfer window, looking at areas of the squad that you want to strengthen and make it better. And so when the window closes, you can move forward. And then what happens as well, Hayley, is your phone's going 24/7, and then after 12 o'clock tonight, you shake it about in the morning to see if it still works, because nobody's ringing again.
What about how it might affect your squad? If you've got players that might be unhappy, or you've got players who want to go, or players you're trying to help move on and maybe they don't have interest, you know they're going to be maybe surplus to your requirements, players on the fringes you might want to do loan deals for. There are so many things going on. How do you try and keep players happy when you've got all these different aspects of a move? Yeah,
I think certainly for me, it's outlining it very early at the start of the season, and when these opportunities come for players to go, if it's right for the player and the football club, then you keep that continuity in terms of communications going. But once the window closes, Hayley, it's really important that the professional stance comes forward, and the player and yourself as a football club are working jointly together to move and progress through the season.
Yeah, what about just how busy you are? You mentioned that you get to that midnight point and you just breathe a sigh of relief, and then quite often we have this international break where you can have another little bit of a break, recruit, train with your squad. But when you're being constantly sent clips of players, getting calls from agents, what's that actually like? Does it distract from the job you're trying to do when you've got games going on as well?
Yeah, it does. It really does, because you are trying to work on and making sure that the team is well prepped for the match, because that's the important one, those 3 points on a Saturday. But also at the same time, the transfer window is just as important, because it really can enhance your season in getting those 1 or 2 additions that's going to further enhance the squad. So both of them play a really important part, and that's why for managers, 12 o'clock comes tonight, it's a breather, sigh of relief if you've done good business, and it means just progressing and getting through the first half of the season and getting to that January window in a good, healthy position.
What for you has been a deal that's happened that you hadn't wanted to happen, a player you might want to keep hold of, or any big surprises?
For me, I remember managing at West Brom and sort of giving the players this time scale where they could go if they was to move on to another club. And I lost Nasser Chadli about sort of two days before, and it was hard, but it was the right thing for me to do, because we gave him permission to go. He ended up going to Monaco. and then we didn't really get chance in those 2 days to find that replacement. So that was really, really hard, and making adjustments in the season for people and players to fill that position. So probably that's the most notable remembrance that I had in transfer deadline.
Maybe easier to replace a player when you've got the lure of Manchester City or Champions League football elsewhere, but when you're dealing with, League One level on a budget, how much harder does that make your job?
Oh, it's really, really difficult, because certainly for the lower league teams, the big transfers for the lower league team is the loan players. It's when the window's closing and the Premier League have submitted their 25-man squad. It's what additions you can add from those younger players what are looking to play first team football. So for the lower league clubs, it's really, really essential, the loan market.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you? So we've got you in today. The great news is you're going to be doing some games with us on Sky as well, which will be great. I'm sure at some point you're going to be nabbed when a job potentially comes along that suits you. Would you do it all again?
Yeah, Hayley, I'm ready to go in terms of working again. But at the moment now, it's great to be grateful for Sky for coming on and covering some games, because it keeps me out there actively talking and discussing games and giving the watching public an insight into the life as a manager at this stage of the season. So I'm really grateful, but ultimately, I want to get back to the day job.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to your expertise for now with the microphone clipped on, and before we know it, I'm sure we'll be pitch side somewhere interviewing you as a manager. But yeah, thank you very much for now. He's going to stay with us, as is Phil Barnsley as well, in the studio with the deadline absolutely ticking down. We're going to be around the grounds, rounding up the deals that have been done so far, plenty of them, big ones as well. What is still to happen? We'll round up all of that coming next.
Welcome back to Sky Sports News here on deadline day. Now, Arsenal have been busy this window, haven't they? Lots of money was spent early on, though, so the focus now, you would think, is on outgoings. Let's cross live now to Gary Cottrell, who will be speaking to Mikel Arteta later on today. Gary, here on deadline day, we've seen that Nuno Tavares leaving Arsenal to join Nottingham Forest this morning. What else can we expect?
You are exactly right. It is all about out. I think very happy with that business that they did early doors. Bit of a setback with that injury to Jurriën Timber, of course, but barring any drama, I don't think there will be any incomings today. Clip that up and play it out later, potentially. But yeah, in terms of outgoings, there are players who could be on the way out. Half a dozen players who want to get more football, who are asking to move, who the club would be happy to see go. And a couple of those bubbling under nearer the surface, and deals I think that will be done today quite imminently. Rob Holding fallen down the pecking order here at Arsenal in terms of getting a first team place. Two clubs in to buy him on a straight deal. Sevilla in Spain, who of course Arsenal have just drawn in the Champions League group stages. Crystal Palace in the Premier League. It's even Steven. They're neck and neck as far as I can tell in terms of which club is going to secure Rob Holding. But that deal should be announced at some point before the end of today. And talking about Crystal Palace, an Arsenal player who was on loan the second half of last season at Crystal Palace, Albert Sambi Lokonga. Luton Town, I'm hearing, putting in a bid to bring him in on loan within the next few hours. We'll ask Mikel Arteta about those two and any other potential outgoings at around 1:30. And on this busy deadline day, we'll endeavour to bring you that live.
I look forward to that, Gary. Thank you.
There we go. Always good to see Gary Cottrell and Jasper, obviously. Obviously. And good to see you too as well. Phil, let's come to you first of all. Arsenal, and I guess what Arsenal fans want to know, they've done their business early, which is cute and smart, but have they done enough to close that gap on Manchester City?
Highly doubtful. You know, they've given a good run for the money last year. They've done, obviously, good business early on. Brought some good players in. But the gap, obviously, with City purchasing well again in the market, I think they'll take some stopping again. I think they're an outstanding team in the league, and you know, I think it'll take a few more signings for Arsenal to get closer. But listen, they gave them a run for the money last year, and you know, what's to say they can't this season.
Another thing to take into consideration, actually, we've seen some big key injuries, haven't we, as well, to players, in particular those challenging at the top. Jurriën Timber, of course, as well, one of those. But with Arsenal, what do you think Mikel Arteta will be looking to do this season that he perhaps didn't do last season to try and have that edge?
For me, Mikel will be focusing on the final 2 months. He got the first 3 quarters of parts of the season right. It's the final 2 months where he had an injury to Saliba. And obviously his team, what we took looking from the outset, just ran out a bit of steam, Haley. So he's tried to add numbers to the squad. And I think he'll be focusing on those final 2 months last season. Where did it go wrong with the injuries and how his squad dropped off, and managing that high expectation and the demand of winning the Premier League. And I think that's the bit where him and his staff would have been focusing on mostly.
OK, that's the Arsenal. Let's cross the North London divide and go back to Jasper.
Yeah, let's get the very latest on Tottenham then. We heard that Japhet Tanganga is undergoing his medical at Augsburg. I just wonder if that could potentially make room for any incomings. Michael Bridge is covering Tottenham for us today. And Michael, we're expecting a busy day at Spurs, aren't we?
Very much so. Potentially very busy with a few incomings and a number of outgoings. Spurs very keen on those number of outgoings. There are some players where there's no movement just yet. Hugo Lloris, club captain last season, been at Spurs for 11 years. No movement there just yet. No movement on Tanguy and Dembele. But as you rightly mentioned, Japhet Tanganga is undergoing his Augsburg medical now. Sergei Reguilón is close to getting the announcement that he's joined Manchester United on a loan deal. Now, the interesting one is Eric Dyer. So we understand that Spurs have spoken to Bournemouth about potential for their defender, Lloyd Kelly. and talking about Eric Dyer maybe going the other way. Our understanding is that from my colleague Mark McAdam, we're sorting this one out as well between Bournemouth and Tottenham, that Eric Dyer is keen to stay here until the end of his contract and potentially look for a move to a European side at the end of this season when his contract runs out. It's an interesting one because he's not been part of any of the Spurs squads so far. What about the other potential incoming? Spurs are still in discussions with Nottingham Forest for Brennan Johnson. Also, there has been talk about Conor Gallagher potentially coming in. Now, Spurs and Chelsea do not usually do business. It's obviously a big rivalry, but with Conor Gallagher with 2 years left, that is one potentially to keep an eye on very, very late. But here's the big if. If Pierre-Emile Højbjerg leaves the club, there is interest from Atletico Madrid, interest from Fulham, but it just depends if he is interested in a potential move to Fulham. So it all sounds like, Jasper, it could go right to the wire in many of these deals. And thanks to Spurs, it's starting to rain again. So there's a gazebo for me. So thank you very much, Tottenham, because I will be here till the bitter end. But I'm about to go in shortly and get ready for Ange Postecoglou's press conference around 1 o'clock. Got plenty to ask him.
Yeah, a busy day, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah, they knew how long you'd spent doing your hair there. Didn't want it to go to waste.
He's got a gazebo, though.
Yeah.
Oh,
great,
quite intense.
Yes. Bada boom, my gosh. Lots of ifs and buts and ifs and buts. Conor Gallagher, Brennan Johnson potentially coming in. How would they fit into Spurs? Do you see them still doing a lot of business at this very late stage?
I'd say so, yeah. Obviously, he'd want to add at this stage. I obviously covered Forest Man U last week, and you know, Brennan Johnson was an outstanding player. I'm a big fan of his, and obviously Gallagher as well has started the campaign quite well at Chelsea. So two players there with obviously young players, but decent enough experience to go in and, you know, improve that Tottenham squad, that's for sure.
The Eric Dyer situation is really interesting. Listening to Michael there, that maybe the club want him out, but what Michael was saying is he's quite happy actually to sit out his contract there. As a manager, how awkward is that? Do you have to banish them elsewhere to train, maybe with the kids somewhere? But then there's that atmosphere. Does that get created? It's not a happy situation, is it?
No, and that'll go down to Eric and his character as well, really, because if the club are looking to do a business side of it with him, with his contract running up, ultimately the player really, if he sees fit to stay, he stays. Let's face it, Eric's a wonderful player, and if he stays at Tottenham, he'll still be a wonderful addition to the team and help to contribute what I'm sure Ange Postecoglou is looking to be another successful campaign. And if Eric Dyer's there, then I'm sure he'll play a big part in that.
And he's lost his best mate, and Harry Kane, hasn't he? So he's probably just feeling a bit lonely, a bit sad. They knew that Harry Kane was going to go. He's gone. We've known that for a long time. But how much do you think that will affect things in terms of a group of players who are friends for the spirit of all of that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. To have teammates, but when the friendship goes beyond the professional barrier, then that can add as well for the morale in the dressing room. But again, Tottenham's signed Eric Dyer on his professional capabilities on the pitch and that, so they'll be expecting him to conduct himself in the right manner and get on with it. If it happens, it happens. If not, then he's got to get on with the job.
OK, for now, thank you. We're going to head back to Jasper.
Thank you, Hayley. Yes, plenty more to come here on Deadline Day. Up next, we'll be chatting to Phil about just what it's like to be a player surrounding the transfer window. Plus, we will be live to Italy and get a full EFL roundup as well. It's been a busy hour. It's going to continue. Stay with us. Welcome back to Deadline Day here on Sky Sports News. The deadline for us is 11 o'clock, but in Italy it is 7 o'clock tonight. So let's head there now to Milan, where all the deals are being done. Marco Di Michele is there for us. Marco, thank you so much for joining us. The big transfer that we're talking about is Sofyan Amrabat to Manchester United. Will it happen, do you think?
Hello, thank you for having me. Hello from Italy. I think Sofyan Amrabat is a deal that could be done before the closing of tonight, because Manchester United are now speaking to Fiorentina. Fiorentina didn't want to give Amrabat on loan, but now they're open to sell Amrabat on loan with an option to buy. And Manchester United are talking to Fiorentina. They're negotiating, because we know there is also an offer from Fulham for Sofyan Amrabat, but the player doesn't want to go to Fulham. He prefers to go to Manchester United, so that's why the clubs are now speaking. The feeling is that this could be a done deal before the closing of the end of tonight. And if Fiorentina sell Amrabat, they already have another player to buy, which is Maxime Lopez from Sassuolo. So that the fact that Fiorentina have already found a replacement for Amrabat means that they're trusted to close this deal before tonight.
Yeah, that sounds like good news for Manchester United fans. So what about this news that we received recently that AC Milan are interested in Leicester forward Patson Daka? What's the latest on that?
Yeah, they're talking to Leicester for a loan. It should be a €2 million loan with an option to buy. This is a deal AC Milan would like to close. The fact is that there is not so much time, because in Italy the transfer window is closing at 8 p.m. Italian time, so it's 7 p.m. UK time. So there is not so much time to close this deal. It's an international deal with an extra UE player, so this means there are many documents to be prepared, so it's not easy. But this is the striker AC Milan have chosen to be a player to put next to Olivier Giroud, to be the replacement for Olivier Giroud in the matches Giroud won't be able to play. AC Milan had another target, which is Taremi from Porto. They seem to be very close to close this deal, but then yesterday this deal collapsed and Porto decided to keep the player, to keep Taremi. So that's why in these last few hours of deals, AC Milan have found Daka, and they're talking to Leicester City to try and close this deal. As I said before, Milan are still hoping to close this deal and to close everything before the 8 p.m. But the fact that it's an international deal, there are many documents to be prepared, means that they have to rush. They have to be very, very fast to close all the agreement.
Yeah, let's talk about Inter Milan now, Marco, because Davy Klaassen, a man that Premier League fans know from his time at Everton, is that a surprise move for Inter Milan, do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely a surprise, because we were talking yesterday about a possible new signing for Inter Milan in the midfield, especially. But we had few players Inter Milan were trying to bring in. One was Ndombele from Tottenham, and then in the evening we found this name. It's Davy Klaassen, who yesterday played with Ajax. Ajax lost their game, but they qualified for Europa League. Klaassen went in the second half, and right after that match, Inter and Ajax closed all the agreement. It will be a two-year deal. So Klaassen is now having medicals here in Milan. He arrived in Italy this morning around 8 a.m. He's having medicals, then he'll sign his contract until 2025. It will be a free transfer, because Klaassen's agents have been speaking to Ajax. They found an agreement to leave the player free from his contract, because it's a big opportunity for him. He's 30 years old now. He's done a lot for Ajax in these last few years, so that's why Ajax decided to give this chance to the player and to leave him free to sign for Inter Milan as a free agent practically.
Okay, Marco, thank you very much for the update.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
A bit of breaking news to bring you now here on Sky Sports News. Aston Villa. They say they are delighted to announce the loan signing of French international Clement Lenglet. He joins Villa from Barcelona. He's returning to the Premier League. I'm sure you'll remember he spent last season on loan at Tottenham Hotspur. Well, Longley started his career with Nancy in his native France before going on to enjoy a spell at Sevilla as well. The move is subject to a successful visa application, but they have announced the loan signing of the French international from Barcelona. Clement Longley arrives at Aston Villa. It's been a good window for them so far, hasn't it? Now, Brennan Johnson's future could be one of the biggest talking points of the day for Steve Cooper's side. Well, Rob Dorset is at the Nottingham Forest training ground for us today. Have you got a glimpse of Johnson yet, Rob?
We have indeed, and that is big news for Nottingham Forest fans and indeed for Tottenham Hotspur fans, because as you say, we know that Spurs have had a long-term interest in Brennan Johnson. Let's show you the pictures we just got of him arriving here at Nottingham Forest training ground alongside the rest of the Forest squad. They're due to travel down to London before their game with Chelsea tomorrow. They'll travel later this afternoon, and you can see Brennan Johnson there on his phone with the Forest squad, but I wonder whether he's waiting for news of whether that move to Tottenham can actually happen. The information we have is that the two clubs are still negotiating. They're still in discussions about Brennan Johnson, but no fee has yet been agreed. One source has told me things are getting closer, but another source has told us that might be premature to suggest that. So it's classic transfer deadline day situation, isn't it? Brennan Johnson here at Forest, giving a little wave to the supporters there who are gathered outside the training ground, could be on his way to Spurs later on. Definitely heading to London one way or another, whether that's to talk to Spurs or whether to go with the rest of the Forest squad to prepare for their game against Chelsea. Very briefly, Forest have already done Nuno Tavares, done deal, loan from Arsenal with a £12 million option. Callum Hudson-Odoi is here, undergoing a medical. Nicolas Dominguez is here.
He's here. And then he went like that. We will never know, Phil, will we?
No idea what's happened.
Rob Dorset keeping us in suspense there. We will find out what he was going to say. It was fascinating just looking at those pictures of Brendan Johnson walking in there. As a player, give us an insight into his mind. He doesn't know whether he's going down to Stamford Bridge to play against Chelsea tomorrow. He doesn't know if he's going to be wearing a Tottenham shirt of the week. That must play with your mind.
Yeah, I think so, but obviously the professional aspect of the player, it'll solely focusing on the job he's got to do tomorrow, and that'll be for delivering for Nottingham Forest. And you know, I'm not surprised there's speculation in for him, or big clubs are in for him, because he's an outstanding talent. You know, he's shown that over the last 2 seasons, and yeah, let's wait and see. Let's see how it unfolds.
Yeah, I mean, I can't get my head around how it works. Am I packing stuff just to go to Stamford Bridge, or am I packing 3 pairs of underpants? I don't know.
At least they're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Drop him off at the services.
Yeah. OK, you've been in this position, maybe not on deadline day, but is it a trauma to move? Is it exciting to move? What is the feeling? Because you're uprooting yourself and going somewhere else, aren't you?
Yeah, obviously there's an element of excitement because you're going to a new club. You know, but obviously the downside is obviously if you've got a young family and, you know, uprooting them, moving them to a new place. So, you know, everything comes into play with when a player's obviously looking to move. It's not just necessarily how much you're going to get, and maybe the club want you, or obviously your club want to get you out of there. But I think there's a lot of factors in terms of making a move, and you know, certainly a lot of stuff you have to take on board and consider before jumping ship.
Yeah, and we've been admiring this picture, action shot of
terrible
you there.
facials.
No, that was fantastic, I thought. Anyway, thanks, Phil, for the moment. OK, we've got to find out what's going on in the EFL. Let's go to Jasper.
Rob, thank you very much. Yes, that's exactly what we're going to do, because lots of deals happening in the EFL today. And for the very latest, we can speak live to our very own David Pratt. And David, great to see you here on deadline day. Let's start with one of your old clubs then, Southampton. They've signed Taylor Harwood-Bellis, and we understand they want Sunderland duo Ross Stewart and Patrick Roberts. Overall, with James Ward-Prowse in mind, is this a good window for Southampton?
I think if it ends up being one with the players that you've just mentioned, Jasper, I think it'll be a very good one. A team that's coming out of the Premier League will always have players that are cherry-picked. I think if they're going to get good money for them, which they have done so far, then it's something that I think Southampton fans will take on board. if you do get Patrick Roberts and Ross Stewart over the line, akin to what Phil was just talking about, geographically it'd work because Saints are up playing Sunderland tomorrow at lunchtime, so they can jump on the bus and come back with them, can't they? So maybe that's part of it. But I think you've got two very good players there at a point in the career where a move to a club such as Southampton might spur them on a little bit further. And Taylor Howard-Bellis, I think what I saw from him for Burnley last year, still kind of looking at breaking into Manchester City. There is the option, of course, for him to be there for a longer period of time and a more permanent contract. I think that is very, very good business across the board. And if you are Russell Martin and a Southampton fan, you should be relatively happy.
OK, what about another of your former clubs, David? Leeds now, because we've had a lot about forward Wilfred Gnonto in this transfer window. Yeah. He could be leaving for Everton then. Would that be a big blow to their hopes of promotion back to the Premier League?
Do you know what? He's a very good player. I wouldn't say that either Leeds fans or myself have seen enough consistent minutes out of him by virtue of the fact that he didn't really have a chance and he didn't play as many times as he probably should have done last year in the Premier League. So there is a very, very good player in there. There's a very young player in there as well. But the way that they've approached it, and whether we look at the advisors or whether we look at the player himself, I think there's responsibility to be taken across both sets of shoulders there. The apparent refusal to play, to come away from the first team. He got himself back into the first team. He scores a goal. Sinisterra in a similar situation. Didn't exactly endear him to the Whites faithful, but you score a goal, you play well, you get yourself back in there incrementally. If there's a deal to be done and there's good money, I always think it's better to move a player on. And if Willie Gnonto is in that position, I'm sure Leeds United would recover.
David, we've got about 30 seconds, I'm afraid, but just tell us, which clubs are you expecting to be most active today in the EFL?
Oh, I think you might see more from Southampton. I think Leicester have done pretty good business so far, as have Norwich, getting their work done early. That's a very good bit of advice that you give to young footballers. Get your work done early, then you can relax. The rest of them, I think, are all pretty well settled. Southampton, as you say, Jasper done decent deals. And as for Leeds United, I think it's about slamming the door shut and making sure that those key players don't get themselves out through the exit door. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
There we go. You've wrapped it yourself. David, as a pro, as ever. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much indeed.
An impressive beard.
I was just about to say it's gone for the Phil Bardsley look. Jasper's channeling a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, a beard off between the three of them. I reckon David Prutton might take it.
Yeah, he's the winner. Hands down.
It was. Yeah. It was pretty impressive.
Darren's got a nice one. I'm just jealous. This is what it is, jealousy.
Right. Thanks to Prutz, thanks to Jasper, thanks to the morning team, but most of all, thanks to our guests for being in.
Pleasure.
Look forward, I'm sure, to having you in more a little bit. Phil, definitely see a lot more of you as well, covering the EFL alongside David and his magnificent beard there.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Cheers, thank you.
We're being transferred out as well.
We are.
Aren't we? But still, plenty of deals to be done between now and 11 o'clock. Make sure you stay with us as Deadline Day continues next.